Will GTA 6 launch with a 60 FPS mode? Well, I actually think the answer is trending in a more positive way because there have been new developments that point to it being a much stronger possibility. More than that, I think if you look at Rockstar's recent choices with GTA 5, as well as how 60 FPS as a topic has been handled by big game companies as well as the gaming community, I think it's a bigger priority than people think. Because up to now, there's been a lot of dialogue about this topic and a handful of things get said. You know, all of their games up to now launched at 30 FPS. GTA 6 is so big, they're just not going to care about this. GTA 6 is so big, it won't really negatively affect the game. There's also those who think the game is just going to be so big and ambitious that they're just not going to care about performance. And I get why you might think that. We've seen a lot of games do this. They push fidelity, they push the systems, and then the game performance suffers. There's a pattern of that in the gaming industry, so I understand why somebody might think that. But I think careful observation of other patterns recently actually shows that 60 FPS matters more than it used to. And Rockstar has been doing some very strange things in a game that's more than 10 years old in the lead up to the biggest game that they've ever made. So I want to look at what the experts said on this topic. I am going to talk about why I don't really agree, but then I want to look at the recent choices of Rockstar with GTA 5 and also at the public response and even studio response to the 30 versus 60 FPS debate. But before I do that, be sure to hit like and subscribe if at any point in this video you like the content and you want to see more like it. GTA 6 is such a hugely anticipated game, it just really didn't come as any surprise that the question about 60 FPS came up pretty quickly. And when asked about this, Richard Ledbetter from Digital Foundry did not give gamers a sugar-coated or hopeful answer, which I actually appreciate. I would much rather somebody keep expectations more tempered or low than give false hope or hype when we have so little information. Pulling from an IGN article on the topic, here is what Ledbetter had to say when asked if GTA 6 would run at 60 FPS. He said, "No. Grand Theft Auto games have always run complex simulations that push the CPU hard, which is why every GTA game has initially launched on their target platforms at 30 FPS or lower." And naturally, the thought in response to this was, well, what about the PS5 Pro? Will it be able to hit 60? Not so, says Ledbetter. He said the following: the PS5 Pro uses the same CPU as the PS5, and it would be extremely challenging to hit 60 FPS if the base PS5 version is targeting 30 FPS. This isn't a GPU problem, it's a CPU problem. Now keep in mind, he is basing this off of his initial prediction that the base PS5 and the Series X consoles will just not be able to hit 60. And listen, I trust his analysis on this sort of thing, but I felt his prediction had a small oversight in it. Yes, all previous GTA games launched at 30 FPS, but the most recent GTA game, GTA 5, released over 10 years ago. Back then, games of this size were not launching at 60 FPS. The expectation just wasn't there for 60. As an example, GTA launched in 2013, and 4 years later in 2017, I was playing Destiny 2 on console at 30 FPS. It was a really huge deal when I was able to switch to PC and get 60. That's 4 years after GTA 5 came out, and they were still launching games, and most games were just hitting that 30. Now, this doesn't make his prediction wrong, but I feel it makes the prediction a tad incomplete. And when you look at what Rockstar has done recently, it paints a very different picture than, well, they've always released their games at 30 FPS. So, what have they been doing that makes me say that? The first and most important thing to point out is that Rockstar updated GTA 5 to run at 60 FPS on the current gen consoles. This seems like a bad decision if they plan on releasing GTA 6 below that performance threshold. You could even theorize that the work done in GTA 5 was informative and experimental as a way to figure out how to do it in GTA 6. If we're going to accept predictions about the engine and previous games, the development in GTA 5 has taken that into consideration, right? It breaks the pattern. Now, you might push back and say, well, they probably will add 60 FPS later in GTA 6, but it's not just going to launch with that. It won't be a priority. I would say, yeah, maybe, but consider something else that they just did. Just listen to some of the things that they literally just added to the PC version of GTA 5 from their official blog about it. PC players on the newly upgraded version running with the recommended specifications can enjoy ray tracing features only available on PC, such as ambient occlusion and global illumination, plus ray traced shadows and reflections that first debuted on the PS5 and Xbox Series X and S versions. So they just randomly decided to add global illumination and ray tracing shadows and reflections to the next-gen consoles, and now they're adding even more to PC. In the same year that GTA 6 is supposed to release, they also added support for DLSS and FSR. Listen to this part. There is also support to AMD FSR and NVIDIA DLSS with frame generation support planned for both at a future date, and DualSense controller support with adaptive triggers, plus faster loading times using SSD and direct storage on supported devices and configurations, enhanced support for higher resolutions, higher aspect ratios, and higher frame rates, as well as enhanced audio with support for Dolby Atmos and improved fidelity of speech, cinematics, and music. This is an awful lot of great and modern updates for a 12-year-old game, and higher frame rates was actually mentioned. And yes, this is PC, but remember, some of what PC got were the ray tracing features already added to PS5 and the Xbox Series consoles, and they're wanting to do more. They're going to add more support later for GTA 5, so it's like they're continuing to work on it. So just zoom out on this and consider something. In the lead up to GTA 6 releasing, Rockstar has spent time and resources raising both performance and fidelity and features of GTA 5. Now, what possible reason could they have for doing that? The simplest answer, I think, is the most likely one. They're experimenting and they're testing and they're learning for GTA 6. Also, is it a really good idea to draw attention to how great GTA 5 looks and runs right before marketing and releasing GTA 6 if it's going to run at less than that? I mean, this really gets traction in my mind when you consider the public response and the dev company behavior around 60 FPS in the past few years. But before we do that, I do want to answer one question that I do think is fair. Someone might ask, well, why hasn't Red Dead Redemption 2 received the 60 FPS update? If the engine and the team can do it, why not give that game the same treatment? I actually think this question really reinforces my point. There have been a few rumors that a 60 FPS update is coming to Red Dead Redemption 2, but the fact that they are focusing on GTA 5 and even focusing on it in the same year that GTA 6 is supposed to launch, it adds credence to my theory. So now that we've looked at Rockstar's behavior as of late, let's look at the gaming community and the gaming companies as well. If you still think that 30 FPS is no big deal or totally tolerable, I don't have the goal of changing your mind. And frankly, I don't have to. Once you experience 60 FPS for a good amount of time, you won't be able to go back. Over the years, I've had so many people come back and say, you were right, I have finally seen the difference. So I don't have to convince you, and honestly, just enjoy 30 FPS for as long as you can. But there is clear evidence that the public perception about 30 is changing. Let me just quickly walk through some things that have happened in recent years. Back in late 2022, in the lead up to Gotham Knights releasing, I had multiple observations about how the game had degraded in the trailers over time, so naturally, concern about performance became a talking point. One of the members of this channel was in the Gotham Knights Discord and simply asked if the game was going to offer a 60 FPS mode. He was timed out almost immediately for just asking the question. I saw the screenshots. I can verify this happened. He wasn't being unkind. So, you have to see what this means. They had standing orders to keep the lack of 60 FPS quiet. Well, why? Because they knew it would be viewed as a negative. Even after this, they only announced the 30 FPS news in their Discord. Again, they knew it would be a problem. Then there was the famous apology from Phil Spencer about Redfall shipping at 30 FPS instead of 60, and those unfortunate stickers that they had to put on the jewel cases of the game. And you will notice a pattern as I go through these examples, because the next game, Starfield, also launched at 30 FPS, and Phil Spencer made assurances, well, we would get an answer about 60 FPS at the Starfield Direct, and we did not. They did it afterwards in an IGN interview, and then Avowed did the same thing. They wouldn't speak to it directly, and they made a passing remark about not needing 60 FPS in an interview. Now, thankfully, the Avowed delay seemingly allowed them to figure it out, albeit the 60 FPS performance mode does not run that well, and it's not very consistent. What happened in the wake of all of this? Well, Redfall added a 60 FPS update, so did Starfield, and another game that launched at 30 added an update, Plague Tale Requiem. I recently rolled credits on it. It ran beautifully. So what does all this clearly communicate? Well, clearly devs and publishers are well aware of the ramifications of shipping a game capped at 30 FPS. They either directly try to keep it a secret, or they try to keep it from being a focal point. They'll sort of wait until it's close to the launch of the game. They've already gotten a lot of pre-orders, or they'll sort of reveal it and mentioning in a passing way, sort of in interviews. If it wasn't a big deal, this wouldn't be the pattern of behavior in the industry. And one game in particular I think has played a pretty big role here, which may surprise you. Fortnite managed to get their game to run at 60 FPS even on old-gen consoles, and that game is really popular. And then Call of Duty Warzone also managed to hit 60 FPS on the old-gen consoles. That is an awful lot of people who are now used to 60 frames per second. It's likely why Mark Cerny was able to say when he talked about the PlayStation 5 Pro that 3 out of 4 people are now choosing performance mode over quality. More and more gamers want frames over fidelity. This leaves me with only one conclusion that I can come to after considering all of this. I think GTA 6 will ship with a performance mode that targets 60 FPS. Now that doesn't mean it hits it consistently or even gracefully, but I just can't see this any other way. Drawing attention to performance and fidelity in GTA 5 right before GTA 6 launches feels like a huge signal flare in my book. And plenty of games have used their old game to test and figure out things for their new game. I mean, look at No Man's Sky right now. It seems like every other month they're updating the game with obvious systems and graphical pushes that are coming directly from Hello Games' next game, Light No Fire. Just imagine spending time and energy on GTA 5 only to release a new game that feels like it doesn't run as well. To me, the pattern is clear. First, using the old game to figure out performance and fidelity tricks for the new game is a common practice in the industry. Second, both the gaming public and gaming companies seem very aware at how important 60 FPS has become. And lastly, it's been 7 years since Rockstar released Red Dead Redemption 2, and a lot has changed since then, so I think Rockstar has changed as well. But those are just my thoughts. I'd love to hear your comments below. Leave a comment, and as always, I do a lot of other content on the channel like live shows, so make sure you hit subscribe and the bell button so I can see you in the next video.